Welcome to the Mojo podcast with me, Richard Stokes, and what a great response to this new series so far. Thank you for all the listens, shares, reviews. This massively helps more people discover these Mojo stories. On this series, I'm talking to an incredible group of founders, people finding their mojo by creating something new, a business, a brand, charity, movement, community. Quite often I'm discovering a combination of these. Each episode shines a light on the approaches, habits and attitudes of these founders, and we're hearing key lessons from a wide variety of people, some who went alone, some with partners, but all who stepped out of their comfort zone, conquered their fears and realised their true potential. Today I'm talking to a relatively new founding duo, two women who had worked together many years ago before separately and coincidentally coming up with an idea to revolutionise how people find jobs in the advertising industry. At which point they were reunited and decided to join forces to create Liberty Hive, a tech platform that connects great people to great companies. They talk about the support that has helped them, but also share some of the loaded questions that has helped spur them on.
Actually, sod that, we can be both. We can still have a life, but we can be really ambitious.
Kate Merritt and Laura Braithwaite formed Liberty Hive a year ago, to the day we recorded this podcast. You won't quite hear me singing happy birthday, but there was a celebratory vibe in the room, I can tell you. This is an amazing story of the stars aligning and how their collective mojo is now firing at a much higher level now they're working for themselves and learning so much in order to grow their business. Indeed, the higher mojo allows them to take on more and realise their true strengths. Kate and Laura share how they've learned the key lesson to find their true authentic voice and tone, which after a collective 50 odd years in an industry built on jargon is some doing. This meant that when they shared Liberty Hive to the world via a LinkedIn post, it was honest and open language.
And all the comments were so positive. And I think that was the first time when we thought, right, we're not mad. We've got an idea that works here and we've got a huge amount of support behind us for this.
This is the first of several conversations I'm having with co-founders who both join me on the podcast. And I hope you'll love the collective energy and high level of mojo we have in this episode. Please do remember to share with other budding founders and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. And by the way, if you are thinking about your next move, taking that seed of an idea and making a big leap with it, or you've already embarked on your journey as a founder, but perhaps you need some external support, I should mention that that is what I do in my day job. I'm a business coach who provides space, support and accountability to startup founders every day so they can grow their mojo and fulfill their potential. Okay, that's the ad break done. Now let's jump into the mojo conversation with Liberty Hive. Welcome to the Mojo podcast, and I'm over the moon today to have two old friends join me on the podcast, Kate Merritt and Laura Braithwaite, who together form Liberty Hive. And another thing, it's their birthday today, as in Liberty Hive's first birthday.
Yay!
Hey,
Kate, Laura, welcome. I mean, we just discovered this. We're just about to press record, and you told me, oh yeah, I think we've been going for about a year. No, exactly a year.
Indeed. Although we've been working on it for a lot longer than that, obviously. But yeah, we've been open for business a year today. So we're I don't even know where the time's gone, actually. It's just flown by. So yeah.
And a brilliant way to celebrate it, talking about it.
Well, exactly. And thank you for making the time today on the birthday of Liberty Hive to come and share, you know, your experience in that year and what went before it, obviously, and some of those lessons that you've learned, the experiences that you've had. So we're going to get into all of that today. But the first question I always start with is, so how is your mojo today out of 10? I'm going to ask Kate first.
My mojo, I would say, is about an 8, rising 9. We're getting to the end of the week, which is always exciting. Son's birthday at the weekend, so looking forward to that. I have to admit, though, if you had asked me what my mojo was at 7 o'clock this morning, it possibly would have been closer to about 5. So it's definitely a rising mojo as we go through the day. So yeah, good to be here.
Great. I'm glad we've got you on the rising tide of mojo.
Who knows? After this, it might be a 10, Richard. I'll be so energized.
It can happen. And Laura, for you, where are you today?
I'm probably more like a 7. I was 8 yesterday, so I'm actually slightly on the decrease. But whereas I get to the weekend and I start to get a little flag a little bit. But something that Kate and I were chatting about is it's funny because we always sort of pick each other up and balance each other out. So the joys of a partnership is really handy.
Oh, I love that. So if one of your mojo levels is a little low, the other might be higher, and you actually lift each other up.
And we can sense it straight away at the beginning of the day, and there's no criticism behind it. It's just, as it's our first Zoom call or real life meeting now. But yeah, we just know how to sort of yin and yang, I suppose.
It sounds like there's a lot of honesty in that for both of you, just to share that.
Yeah, we've both got, sometimes it's just family stuff. I've got elderly parents that we're looking after at the moment. It might be demands of the kids or whatever it is on a Monday morning. But we're always pretty honest with how we're feeling at any given time. And interestingly, when we've been talking to investors, they always say actually they prefer to invest in partners because you always, if one of you is sick or if one of you is having an off day or if one of you is going off on a tangent, the other one is there to equalize and balance you out. And I think Kate and I do that pretty well.
Wow. So there's a massive learning you've dropped in the first couple of minutes of the podcast is investors are really into talking to partners.
Now I was going to say, and we can totally see that, can't we, Laura? Because I say not only just on energies, but that whole honesty and in terms of being open about ideas and things. And we can read each other quite well as partners. So if I go quiet, it generally means I'm not sure about an idea. Yeah. And if Laura keeps talking, it means that she's probably not completely sure about an idea. So it's energy.
I'm trying to convince myself. Whereas, Kate does the deathly quiet, and you're like, that means she's not loving this idea. It's very different ways of communicating, understanding how we communicate.
But in that, what I'm hearing, those differences sound like a bit of a superpower in the business, in that you may be seeing things from a different point of view, therefore reacting in a different way. Is that true?
Yeah, I exactly. And I think that goes back to why people look for founders, co-founders like that, because it means that you've got someone to bounce ideas off. And I can't imagine actually doing it by yourself and trying to think, is that a good idea or is that a bad idea? I have no idea. But at least if you've got someone, you can run those things through by them.
And I hear that a lot actually from founding duos or partners or groups, that they can't even imagine doing this by themselves.
No, definitely not. One of the things that we've learned really quickly is just we're not precious. We'll put ideas out there, and sometimes we can't answer them between ourselves, and we'll just be like, who can we get to ask, to talk to? And one of the things we've quickly discovered is people are incredibly helpful. And we have asked so many people for opinions, for favors, but we don't just sort of look to each other to answer everything. And we're certainly not precious, and we really love it if people can have an opinion and tell us, I really wouldn't do that. Our tech team are probably the most challenging when we come up with an idea of how we want to develop our tech, and no, that's a really bad idea. Okay, right, we'll start again.
You've got a really good idea of where your mojo levels are, and you support each other with them, and that helps you with, I'm hearing like idea generation and decision making by the sounds of it. But when I say the word mojo, because I'm on this mission to really understand what it means for so many people, what does it mean to you two as founders?
Before the session, I purposely didn't look up the definition of mojo, because I know then I'd start repeating that back at you, because as comms planners, we can't resist that, a little bit of research and, but for me, and it probably means something slightly different for Kate, but for me, it's how quickly my brain's working, how excited I am about, I look at my to-do list and I don't feel like it's weighing me down. I feel excited by it. The belief in Liberty Hive and just sparking lots and lots of ideas. And it's probably highly irritating to everyone else, because you always know when I'm on a 9 or a 10, because emails come flying. It's probably irritating to everyone else.
No.
However, about sparking and firing. I love that, Laura.
Well,
thank you. And Kate,
no,
for you, is it different?
When I was thinking about the question, I was like, actually, my mojo is my spark. I mean, if I was going to sum it up really quickly, it is my spark. And I think when all those things are firing well, that's when the energy flows, that's when the ideas flow. That's when I'm sort of, a bit like Laura's saying, a bit unstoppable, really. And that's what's so important. And I think it's an interesting mojo, because there's certain things, like I said, that you can do to change it. If when I woke up and I was a 5 this morning, I thought, right, I need to sort this out. And for me, that can be exercise. So I literally went running in the rain, but felt brilliant afterwards. And that was just reset myself. Diet, being around people, as I said at the end of this podcast, who knows, might be a 10, because just having that spark of other people really helps mojo. So I guess at the heart of it is a spark, but there's lots of other things that go into that to make the mojo higher or lower than what it would be.
I love that sense of being unstoppable when you know that your mojo is higher, and what that's doing for both of you. And do you think what mojo is for you has changed now you are founders and you're out there doing this together versus, this is our common histories. We both, all three of us, I should say, worked in the media industry for many, many years, working for, big corporate organizations. Is it similar, or has it changed for you?
I mean, hugely changed. I think one of the big things is the learning curve, because you in previous agency lives where you've done certain roles a few times, slightly different reiterations or different clients, whereas now we're having to get stuck into every part of the business. And once upon a time, I would have hated commercials. Now it's a joy. It's like, let's unpick our finances, our cash flows. What does it mean for our targets next month? But once upon a time, that would have bored me. Whereas now, Kate is better at it than me, I have to say. But I enjoy it much more than I ever thought I could. So that learning curve aspect, and just sometimes I would say it's sort of terrifying and exciting in equal measure. But it's that challenge of just learning shareholders agreements and all sorts of things we've never done before that we've had to learn. So I would say that has really got us through lockdown as well. We had mojo all through lockdown because we had this business to grow. But yeah,
and I just think, adding to that as well, as we've sort of gone through our careers, I think mojo has almost become more important, because we sort of did those big corporate jobs, and then we both got to a point where our mojos were probably quite low, because we had got to a point where we weren't really enjoying them anymore. And actually refinding our mojo through Liberty Hive and creating what we've created has been phenomenal. And it's kept us going, and it keeps it high every day. So
great, and that's a great perspective and a lovely jumping off point, I think, to just a little bit of the backstory of what brought you together to create Liberty Hive. And we'll talk a bit more about what Liberty Hive is and does as well in a second, because obviously you've known each other for some time. But was there a moment, what was the magnetism that drew you both to this mission?
I suppose at the heart of it was a passion for people. So we both came from the media industry, as you said. We both ran big teams. And we've always enjoyed working with people, bringing people on. And what our purpose at Liberty Hive is to do is to actually connect great people to great companies, but in a way that's been quite different to traditional recruiters. In fact, we don't even consider ourselves recruiters. It's all about connections. So we literally can take people, connect them to the companies, but we do it in a sort of a slightly different way. We do it through a technology platform, a bit like a dating site, is what we call it. So dating site for people in media. But it allows people to work in a different way in terms of more flexibility, how they want to work, where they want to work, and they can put all that criteria into the platform. So that's the little bit of backstory. But how we came together, as I say, it was from that passion for people. We met when we were both researching the idea, actually, and we both had this idea to change talent. And we went into an agency within the space of 2 weeks of each other to research it and get some feedback. And at that point, the MD of that agency said, hang on a minute, you two know each other. And by the way, you have the same idea. And Laura and I had worked together for 5 years in our first jobs. That was 15 years prior to this 2-week window where we were both researching the same idea. So when this contact of us said, hang on a minute, you know each other, I think you should speak. As soon as she said Laura's name, I was like, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine a better partner. And that's 100% genuine. And literally, I think we met sort of 2 days later. We'd come up with an idea, fleshed out our ideas, which were really similar, created a brand, registered it, all within sort of 6 weeks.
I was going to say, it was really quick. We just got up and running. But yeah, it was, I think Kate always describes it as just the stars were totally aligned. And we worked really well together all those years ago at Dentsu, but we haven't really sort of kept in touch. So we've really literally picked up where we left off. And Kate always talks about the fact that we used to do the Bayersdorf comms planning around our kitchen table, and my daughter was about 3 years old. And then during lockdown, my oldest was around the kitchen table, but this time as an intern helping us with Liberty Hive. So we were back around that kitchen table, but this time with a 23-year-old, not a 3-year-old.
Running our own business and not someone else's. So.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Well, I can see now when you're describing how your mojos are fundamentally different to then. This incredible, coming together. The stars, as you say, literally aligning. Someone thankfully having the generosity to say, "Hang on, you're both talking about the same thing. You've got to come together." So, was there a potential for you both just to crack on and do this separately?
There was, but I can still remember that day going to see that MD, and it was a really cold February day. And I remember just feeling a little bit like, am I crazy? This feels just a bit hard. This feels a bit sort of miserable in a way, because you've got a bit of an idea, but just quite lonely actually. And going in, trying to pitch an idea, you're not sure if you're kind of bonkers. And so we were going our separate ways. But certainly for me, I didn't feel 100% convinced by it on my own. So I suppose Kate gave me the confidence, like literally, like we can do this together.
Exactly, and that was exactly the same for us. I mean, or for me, I would been floating the idea around for actually probably about 3 years before I was brave enough to actually start putting it on paper and thinking about how it could work. So it's kind of ironic that it took 3 years of thinking about something and then meeting the right partner, and then within 6 weeks sort of registering a company and going for it.
And on that, putting it out there and putting it on paper, Kate, because we know each other from before, and I knew about what you were doing from your very first LinkedIn post, which was essentially sharing to the world, this is what we're doing. So, what I love about it is that I know it wasn't the complete package at that point, I don't think, and you'll tell me more in a second, but you still had the courage and your convictions to go, I'm going to put this out there and see what happens. So tell me a bit about that.
That was an amazing moment, actually. I mean, won't lie, it probably took us 2 days to build up to sending that one message on LinkedIn, and then we sort of poured over it, we looked at it again and again to make sure we had it right, and then we sort of press send and it just went. And you're right, at that point we didn't have any technology, we only had an idea about what we wanted to create, and because it's a community-based idea, the response was phenomenal. I think we got about 13 or 14,000 likes, comments very, very quickly. And at this point, we really did not have a very big network because we hadn't been using LinkedIn as individuals very much. And all the comments were so positive. And I think that was the first time when we thought, right, we're not mad. We've got an idea that works here, and we've got a huge amount of support behind us for this. And from there, that gave us confidence, obviously. And then from there, we ended up building up a community of about 150 people before we'd even launched the technology platform. So before we'd even launched, we had these people that were supporting us, contributing, talking to us, which is incredible, really. But it took a lot of courage to write that first LinkedIn. And I think Laura and I will always remember sitting there.
So nervous. Pressing that send button was like, you felt sick. Because really, if we didn't have much response, people didn't like the idea, and we nitpicked over the wording, it was the next day was a real buzz because we saw the support from the industry, which was fantastic from people like you, Richard.
Well, I remember it, and I was straight on it. I think Kate and I had a conversation very, very quickly, and I can only imagine that next day was a proper 10 out of 10 mojo day. But I'm just so impressed by the fact that you put it out there, knowing it's a great idea. It is an idea, and let's almost road test it. Let's get some feedback, because often I think what can happen, and I think this is a bit more of a masculine trait than a feminine trait, and I'd love to hear your views on that. But men, we can sit around and noodle around a little bit longer. It's kind of got to be done before it can be pushed out. And I think there is a more of a feminine trait about, I want connection on this. I want feedback on it. What do people think? Is that fair, do you think?
Yeah, I think we're certainly a bit more cautious in terms of going to the next step. So we, in that instance, we were getting feedback from the start, and that's always been part of our model. We've always encouraged feedback. We tell our consultants all the time, if things don't work or there's better ways of doing it, tell us. I think it goes back to a point Nora said earlier, really not precious. And, even our tech developers said from the start, what you want to create, let's just see how the users use it and see what feedback you get before you start, putting too much money in. But on that LinkedIn post, I think, again, a learning that we had when we were thinking about it was someone just said, be honest. And I think our first LinkedIn post, we were quite humble. We sort of acknowledged that we were quite nervous. We were putting something out there. And I think sometimes showing that vulnerability really helps, because it's real. I mean, we were feeling nervous. We were feeling slightly out of depth, and people picked up on that, and they wanted to support us and they wanted to help us. So I think that was a really good insight, because it's very easy, especially coming from our backgrounds with all the corporate language and all, that we're used to using. We could have gone straight back into marketing language and we are launching and, that kind of language. And I don't think we'd have got anywhere near the same amount of support and empathy, because people want to help you and support you.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because it actually takes me back to one of the things that our chair, Pippa Glucklick, first said: drop the corporate language and be yourselves. And it took us months to be able to do that. We just couldn't help revert back to corporate language. And she kept saying, what is your tone? What's real to you? And that took a bit of time to sort of work that out. But we've gone what's true to us, which is we just try and be warm, friendly, helpful, but in terms of also being really ambitious at the same time.
I think that's where our Liberty Hive mojo came in, wasn't it? That was kind of our Liberty Hive mojo, finding it in the tone and our energy and how we communicate.
You talk about there about having a chair, Pippa, I know is really important to you. So I'd love to get into some of those early learnings. So post, we've launched, we're building this amazing community. What were some of the learnings, challenges, bumps in the road that you experienced early on?
You have to take a huge leap of faith as the big thing at the beginning, because we've never built a tech platform. We were pretty clueless actually when it came to finding the tech platform. We had to go out and meet a lot of people before we had to just have a feeling in our gut about who was the right partner. And there's a little bit of luck. I always say to Kate, it's not luck. We did the homework, but there is a bit of luck involved. But I think we're naturally a bit cautious, so we had to really force ourselves right from the beginning. The biggest challenge is taking that leap of faith and going for it. And things that you think you don't understand around tech and data, actually nothing's that difficult if you put your mind to it. I think that's one of the biggest learnings for us is we shied away from some things at the beginning. Even talking at events, our first event that we did, we were terrified and we spent days preparing for it. Whereas now we'd be much more natural and, say it how it is and based on true experiences.
Yeah, and it's having that belief, isn't it? I mean, literally, you have to tell yourself every day, this is going to be amazing. This is going to work. We're doing this correctly. Of course, we take on board all the comments, but it's interesting. Just recently, I was talking to another founder of a business who'd actually just raised 20 million. And all he kept saying was, we're going for world domination. And I was thinking, you've been going for a year. And he said, no, but if you don't believe you're going to have world domination, you won't get world domination. And it's that kind of really strong belief in what you're doing. And I think as soon as that belief that it may not work, or you don't think it's going to work, or it starts eating away at you, it's really hard. So that is a very big part of what we learned early on. And I think to the whole going back to the point about finding mojo within Liberty Hive, that gets easier because we know what Liberty Hive stands for now. We know the language we're using, and so that's been, I say, a big learning curve in terms of, it's got easier.
Just listening to Kate there as well, one of the things that we really found hard to get our heads around, now watch Dragon's Den in a completely new way. I never used to enjoy it that much, but now I love it. I sit there. When we first looked at the books, and we're like, well, hang on, we're not going to make a profit till, the first year. You're not going to come out of profit. It's all about revenue. Well, how does that work? If you don't make a profit, how can you exist? And then learning about business and what you have to put into a business before. It's not about paying yourself a load of money on day one. It's about blood, sweat and tears putting into the business, and not being scared about the fact that you're not profitable from day one. But we're really sort of diligent when it comes to our finances and our investors, and but there's a certain amount that you've got to put into the business before you can take anything out, that's for sure. And I never used to really get that, and now when you listen to Dragon's Den, you listen about profitability and share agreements and things, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah, so you've had to, as you said about learning earlier, Laura, you've learned around the tech, because you're a tech company. You sound like you've got deep in on the commercials, the financials of it. And as you said, that's neither of your backgrounds. And I find that again, the belief, the idea is so strong. It doesn't matter about our backgrounds as strategic planners, although I'm sure that's super useful. But she's stepping into it still with the confidence that this idea is so good that it can. World domination, Kate, is what I'm sure it'll lead to.
Exactly. Next steps.
And that's no joke. No, we absolutely thinking about expansion plans for next year, the year after, what additional services, talking to the next round of investors. And some of these people are quite, tech billionaires who, again, our very first meeting, really terrified. But now we're a bit more confident. We hold our head a little bit higher. We know, I'm not saying we know everything that we're doing every day, but we certainly are feeling more confident. And the belief is just growing, and the mojo is growing. Okay, so
you're stepping in to, again, some new environments as well, by the sounds of it, and working with some people that, again, might not have orbited your worlds before. So, and obviously the belief is important to that, the belief in the idea. How does your working relationship as this founding pair help you with this, stepping into, pitching to a tech billionaires for some investment in Liberty Hive?
Well, we were talking about this the other day, because I said to Kate, oh, well, maybe we don't need to both be there for whatever it was that we were thinking about going. And then actually we are a real duo now. We give each other the strength, I suppose. Yeah. So I went to an event recently and I was like, oh, without Kate, it's a lot harder somehow. So I think when we're going into those new environments that we've never done it before, it's sort of, we can egg each other, push each other forward. And that really does work for us. And if one of us has that moment of doubt, it's like, come on, we just give it a go. What can go wrong? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If we mess up a meeting, it's our company that we've messed that meeting up for. And we've had a couple of shockers right at the beginning of, there's a couple of really bad meetings where things went wrong. I think there was one meeting where we got the terrible giggles, which was pretty bad, because we were talking about being a tech company and we had a few tech issues. So yeah, but pushing ourselves into those environments and just kind of really telling each other we can do it.
Yeah, and also I think it helps. We've got quite different skill sets in some ways. And strengths and weaknesses. So, and because we know each other so well now, we know who's going to, who can lead on certain bits, who's going to be better. And again, that, as a duo, I suppose that comes back to a confidence for both of us, knowing that there's certain areas Laura's going to be stronger on that she's going to cover, and vice versa. Right.
So this is where the complementary nature of just what you bring together, what your experience is, and just who you are, I imagine, as people, how you're wired, helps.
Exactly.
I asked about some bumps in the road, and I do know about one specifically. I'd love to just ask you about that. Tell me about the logo, because I know there was some challenges.
So this is where you need to do your homework, probably. This was a legal challenge that we faced very early on, actually. So having come from obviously media and advertising background, we like to think we sort of know everything about that area. Turns out that we made a slightly big mistake, which was when we put our logo together. We paid for a nice designer to do it. We were over the moon with that. And then within about 6 weeks, we had Bumble, who are the dating site. They sent their lawyers in and said, actually, your logo for Liberty Hive is very similar to the Bumble logo. And there's kind of two parts of us which were very flattered to have Bumble's legal team all over a tiny little Liberty Hive, which hadn't really launched. We were still sort of just doing LinkedIn sort of messages. So they said that it was too close to them. And actually, when we looked into it, Bumble were looking to expand into sort of more business connections. So again, from our perspective, that was like, oh, well, maybe we were onto a good thing here as well. So not only are they keeping an eye on us, but actually they feel slightly threatened, or could be, by a similar business. So that's where the legal costs suddenly had to come up a little bit, because we did need to change our logo, because initially it was quite similar and I could see where they came from. But we got some really interesting advice with that. Rather than use lawyers to go back and fight their lawyers, which as a startup would have been very expensive anyway, they said, just go back and do, say you're two hardworking female founders trying to start a business up, and Bumble was set up by a female founder, so they're big supporters of female founders. And we actually turned it around to our advantage, said, look, we've made a mistake here, it is similar, we will not use that logo, we'll revisit logo options, but it'd be great to keep in touch with you. You're such an amazing company, Bumble. We'd love to learn from you, so in the future it'd be good to chat. So we kind of turned it around in a few ways, and learned lots.
Yeah, we got a really nice response back. But what's interesting about that whole Bumble experience as well is they are actually owned by one of the biggest American private finance companies. So actually, looking back on it, it was a bit scary. There was a moment in time when we looked up this huge financial backing that Bumble have. So there's absolutely no point in contesting it. And we were in the wrong. But that is one piece of advice. We did a lot of homework, but we didn't do enough homework around our branding and our So then after that, we did go back to lawyers, and we spent a lot of time looking at trademarks and obviously doing our due diligence, which passed. And money. Spent a bit of money on that as well.
But it sounds like out of what could have been a very early on crisis, and it probably felt like that at the time, Kate, just what you were talking about, that's turning that around and going, actually, isn't it really interesting that they're coming into our space and where they've come from, and that's a very successful female founder who created Bumble, and here we are. And I love that honesty of you writing back as you, not as lawyer X, to explain what had happened and how that's completely flipped the situation for the better.
And we like our logo more now anyway.
Everybody wins.
No, we ended up with something much better, much cleverer. Really, really happy with the end space that we got to. And now we take all the T's and C's, the lawyer aspects, we take that really seriously, because it's quite galling having to pay thousands when you're not quite sure what you're paying for, because you feel like you've done the homework yourself. But no, definitely need to get proper and specialist lawyers that cover different things and different elements.
So we're talking here a bit about, in a way, people that support you, have helped. You started with the LinkedIn post, which created this community of support and interest. And you mentioned Pippa as your chair. Who else has been supportive for you? I mean, I mean, in your full universe, family, friends, colleagues, who's really been there?
Well, I think our families have had to put up with us, because we have turned into complete boring. At the weekend, you go out for dinner, and honestly, not that we're going out to the same dinners, but we always laugh about it on Monday, because our families have to put up with us talking about it all the time. So we never stop. And it can be first thing in the morning, last thing at night, talking about it at the dinner table with the kids. And, so I suppose we have to be really thankful for the fact they've put up with us, and everybody's and we've listened to they've all had their opinions. My son got very involved, didn't he, at one point with the commercials,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that support has been amazing, and yeah, we probably bored them senseless along the way.
No, I was going to say, I think Laura's being a bit modest as well, because her father is one of our biggest supporters, actually, and having come from his background where he's done a lot of investment in tech. I mean, without your father's input in terms of some of that early setup, I mean, that's just been so invaluable. So he was the one that sort of got us back on track with the legals. So whether that was trademark, but also just setting up the company correctly. I mean, it'd be really easy for Laura and I to jump in, do all our lovely ideas, set it all up, and not have any of the shareholders agreements, any of that kind of stuff, which is a really big part of where sometimes companies fall apart if they haven't put the legals in place in terms of who owns what shares are there. When stuff goes wrong, that's the first thing people start arguing about. So we've been really honest up front and getting that all sorted. And again, that's really down to Laura's father's involvement and advice. So you are being a bit modest on that one.
I mean, we had never heard of when he first said, look at SEIS, look at EIS. What is this? When we did do that shareholders agreement, it went back and forth, and he was nitpicking over, you should be asking this and this and this, and but actually his advice has been completely invaluable. So that's been great. But there's been really senior people in the industry. Lindsay Patterson came along and joined one of our panel discussions, which was fantastic. Taught us, did us a whole sort of webinar piece. They call it a think-in. So people in the industry giving us free time, free space, free coverage.
Adweek gave us some free space as well, which is incredible.
Yeah, Bloom have helped us. So, or we've just organised coffees to go and, I don't know, right at the very beginning, I remember going around town talking to various different CEOs and MDs, but everybody gave us time and everybody continues to give us time. And that's one of the things that we do back. We always make time for everybody. And it's quite interesting because we're a tech platform, but we always say, the tech platform does the heavy lifting, but the personal side is just really important. Making time for our consultants, making time for companies. So if they want to post a role, always chat to us first. The tech does all the matching, and that's fantastic and takes a huge amount of time saving. But that personal touch and making time for people, and that's what we have from people at the beginning and continue to do so, but we always make sure we make time for people.
I'm getting this real sense of, as you say, it's a tech platform, but with an absolute human soul running all the way through the business from when you set it up to where you are now. And I think, you're both very well regarded in the industry that you've come out of. And it sounds to me that this is not about favors being paid back. This is just people really want to help. And I think this is what often really surprises people. People just mostly really want to help and are very generous with their time, whether they're asked directly or you put something out there like your LinkedIn post that says, hey, this is what we're doing. And I think you said, what do you think? You invite the response, and that's great. So here we are, we're celebrating first birthday. I think I have to find a little clip of happy birthday to put on over the top of at the beginning of this. A year into the business running, tell me now, how are things developing? Because I know you've brought in more people to the team, and some seriously experienced people as well.
Yeah, well, our year has been, I think I mentioned to you, it's gone so quickly. We've been so busy. But one of the things is we just realized that we're just having to sort of run faster and faster and faster to cover everything. And part of the whole getting investors on board, we had investment last year, we've got investment this year. And last year it was all about investing in the tech, which we're still continuing to do. And even our tech team have invested in Liberty Hive. So that's been amazing, which, is incredible in terms of helping cover that tech investment. But we just quickly realized we need like-minded people who can come and join Liberty Hive with the same sort of hunger and ambition, and that's what we set out to do. And we're really lucky. I mean, Nicola Harvey and Laura Larry are just incredible. So we've got someone helping with the talent, someone helping with the clients, and it just means that Kate and I have got a bit more space to breathe, but also to think ahead, which I think we were getting to the point, Kate, weren't we, where we were just doing the do and we couldn't, we just didn't have time to think about the next thing.
I think that's an interesting point in sort of our journey almost, is that we, at the end of last year, it did feel like a tipping point. So we were doing well, we're getting momentum, but it was at that question, and I think a lot of founders probably get to it, is when do you invest more, or do we invest more? And if so, how much do we invest more, and how quickly do we want to go? Do we want to sort of carry on and grow more organically and slower? And that might have, a year ago fitted our sort of personal lifestyle more. But actually, when you see that something's growing momentum and could go really fast, you then have to sort of, again, grow some more, get brave again and think, right, is this the time where we just say, right, let's invest in people coming into Liberty Hive to support us. Let's invest more in tech. And we still have questions about, gosh, should we be investing more? And, world domination this year and not in 5 years' time or whatever it might be, but how quickly do you do that? And that's probably our biggest question to ourselves the whole time, is how quickly should we move on this, and how quickly do we need additional funds to help us do that? And that's when we get stuck into the finances and have all that other support to help us make those decisions.
But there is something on that, Kate, that is people have asked us when we first set up, and now I kind of think it's a really irritating question. People would say, well, is this a lifestyle business, or is this a really ambitious business? And I'm like, well, actually, and at the time we felt apologetic about it, going, oh, well, is it okay if we pick up the kids at tea time, or does that mean this isn't a proper ambitious business? And now I'm thinking, actually, sod that, we can be both. We can still have a life, but we can be really ambitious. So actually, we so far we thought, oh, maybe it's lifestyle, but actually next year we're looking at raising a lot more money and expanding possibly into other countries, other regions, maybe different territories. But we definitely, I no longer am apologetic when it comes to that question. I think we have proved that we have kept all the wheels on when it comes to our personal lives, but we can be equally as ambitious as anyone else.
And that's so great to hear as well, because I think, again, I don't know, but perhaps that lifestyle business thing, is that leveled at female founders more than male founders? Discuss. But what I love what you're saying there, Laura, is why can't we have it both ways? Why can't I be there for my family when they need me and be super ambitious about the growth of this business and this amazing idea that we had in the tech that's now behind it, and look where it's going to go? Because if you maybe just go it's super ambitious and I'm going to let my life go, back to your point about the people who are supporting you, you need them and they need you. And it seems to me, going back to the human soul in your business, if you lost that, I'm not sure you'd have quite that spark, that lovely word you said at the beginning that is clearly driving everything.
And it's interesting what you say about female founders, because we found an incredible stat the other day that there's something like only 1p in the pound goes to female entrepreneurs. Now, maybe because there are less female entrepreneurs going for the funding in the first place, I don't know. But Pippa actually sent us a text last night to some stats around how female entrepreneurs, in terms of their productivity, I can
63% better. Female founders tend to do 63% better when they set up businesses, and they generate 250% better, greater returns as well. That's the other thing. So I don't know, that might come back to your question earlier. Are we more sort of cautious and probably do a bit more research and feedback, and then before we jump straight in. I don't know, but there's a lot of research, and support for female founders.
Well, it seems to me that you're ploughing a really important path here for other female founders who are maybe thinking, maybe they're at that stage you were about 3-4 years ago with that, I've got this gem of an idea, but I'm just not quite sure what to do. So what would you say? What would be your advice to someone who's listening to this, going, whether they're by themselves or with somebody else, just thinking about, I've got this thing, but I'm not sure. What would you say?
You'll never regret it. If you've got a little niggle. I always wanted to have my own business, and I always knew that I would one day. Wait till the time's right. Just if you've got that niggle and it's there, you don't have to do it straight away. You can bide your time and make it work for you, but just have the courage to do it, because you'll never regret it.
Yeah, I was going to say courage and belief, and then if you can find a great co-founder, even better. So I think it will make the path a lot easier, but you need the belief and just go for it.
Amazing advice to anyone that's listening of any sex, but this female founder piece I think is particularly important. So just an area I love to close on, and Kate, when I asked you about Mojo and how you up it in the day, you touched on this because you were talking about the importance of exercise and running for you. So just on that, when your mojo is a bit lower, what is it you both do? Is there some habit that you have that if I do this, it's going to go up a bit?
Well, I think, as I say, this morning, that was the run, even though it was absolutely raining and hail, it was getting fresh. Actually, it's fresh air, whether it's a run or a walk, it doesn't really matter. It's the fresh air, light. I think sometimes, especially working from home, making sure you've got that light. And also for me as well, just nutrition is really important, and as I said, and being around people. Also
having a break, because sometimes we work so hard we forget to have a break, and we really apologetic to each other. Do you mind if I just go and walk the dogs? I really want a long dog walk, or I want to go and whatever it is, and we have to remind ourselves, we tell each other off, don't apologize, you need a break. And that is one of the most important things. Once we've had a little break, you come at it refreshed. I'm not as good as, I don't run like Kate, but I dog walk.
Yeah, but outside's important for you. On Laura's dog walks, she comes back, you literally come back firing after a dog walk. You have this idea, I can't keep up after you've had a walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mojo is ramping up after the dogs have had their walk. Fabulous. Well, look, Kate, Laura from Liberty Hive, thank you so much for joining the Mojo podcast today. There's been so much great advice in this, the benefit of your experience. I really appreciate your honesty going through everything you've experienced, in the last year. Oh. Happy birthday again. And I just know this business is going to fly. So everyone keep your eyes open for Liberty Hive. Thank you both.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting us.
I love talking to Kate and Laura. I spent a good few years working with Kate, and I'm overjoyed to see her and Laura's success so far, and knowing there is so much more to come. They are only 1 year in after all, so watch this space. And thank you both for spending your first birthday with me. I love that while they took so much from their corporate careers and applied this to Liberty Hive, the classic transferable skills that we all have, they've also grown massively since developing and launching the business. The growth that comes from learning new things and having new experience, which fundamentally helped them have the belief to take that leap of faith. I really appreciate all the learning they shared here, particularly useful if you are also going to be looking for investment for your idea. When to look for growth and when to take the investment, and then what to do with that money. And look at the openness they have, which has been there from the very start, and the clarity of mission to focus on building a really ambitious business, but to also focus on those who support them. I hope you got lots from this. Please do remember to share and review over on Apple Podcasts so more female founders can hear this. I'm going to share the links to some of the research Kate and Laura mentioned towards the end, which is pretty sobering reading. But you'll be pleased to know I've got many more female founders coming up on future episodes of the Mojo podcast. So until next time, I hope your mojo continues to flow.